What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to today's What If topic, where I'm going to be covering what I believe would happen if Naruto was the reincarnation of Shanks. Now, from the title alone, I'm guessing a lot of you guys are probably clicking just because you're Shanks fanboys, and honestly, I'm making this video because I'm a Shanks fanboy. Recently, I've been getting into a lot of One Piece, watching so many videos, watching Tekken, the Grand Line review, and honestly, I have begun to fall in love with the series. So now I'm starting to make a ton of Naruto x One Piece, Deku x, One Piece content, and I just hope you guys have been enjoying it thus far. That said, if you go on to enjoy this video at any point, or you even just stick around to the end, make sure to like the video, seeing as it helps a ton with YouTube's algorithm. Seriously, it helps a lot more than you know. That said though, enjoy.
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
Okay, so how does this exactly work? I mean, Naruto's gonna be the reincarnation of Shanks, but how does this change his birth? Well, this changes in two ways. Two ways because I simply want Naruto to kind of look like Shanks in a sense. Now, in this time, Naruto's going to actually be born with red hair and black eyes like Kushina. Also, her hair type, because Shanks' hair isn't exactly spiky, so it wouldn't make sense to give like Naruto x Shanks person thing that I'm going to be creating that spiky hairstyle. I personally just don't really see that working a lot. And here's where things kind of get tricky. I begun to start thinking, whoa, what really changes? I could go down the path of Naruto becomes OP off the jump. Naruto like eats some sort of strange devil fruit, because we never really know if Shanks even ate anything. Naruto starts off with OP Haki. I really had no idea where to start until I started genuinely thinking about who Shanks is and what his upbringing was like. We know that he came from nowhere and that he was trained by the King of the Pirates. So after starting to think about that, I was like, who's someone that could similarly train Naruto that would kind of have that same impact? And then it dawned on me. Hiruzen, the Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village. Immediately I began getting to work and thinking, okay, so this time around, maybe because Naruto's the protagonist and because he's lucky, this is going to change his upbringing. And so I started thinking, what if this time around, Naruto's actually trained by Hiruzen because Hiruzen notices the talent that Naruto has within himself, leading to a father and son bond, where he would pretty much end up training under the leadership of Hiruzen, learning chakra control, learning of the fact that he has the nine-tailed fox inside of him, and also revealing his strange abilities that are Haki to Hiruzen, which end up being classified as some sort of strange Kekkei Genkai that Naruto inherited from the Namikaze and Uzumaki bloodline being meshed together, which is kind of just what I'm going to be sticking with when it comes to what ends up happening for Naruto's childhood and upbringing. That said, I think that his general childhood would pretty much be filled with a popularization of Naruto as a kid because of how strong and overall just cheerful and just how Naruto carries himself as a person. Eventually the day would come when Naruto was about 4.5 years old, when Danzo would pretty much end up leaking to the public that Naruto has the nine-tails sealed within him. Hiruzen, actually enjoying Naruto's company and not wanting Naruto to have a tough life, would end up telling everybody that that's cap. So everybody just ends up going on with their lives. I mean, in the original, Hiruzen didn't say anything but just say to keep it a secret, pretty much cementing it as the truth in many people's eyes. But if Hiruzen would have simply just been like, oh, I don't know, it's not true, who are they going to believe? The Hokage or, a village elder? I mean, me personally, I'm believing the Hokage, even if it is a lie. That said though, Naruto would continue training alongside Hiruzen, and when he is training, he would actually be learning about swordsmanship and would enjoy it a lot, learning many things about the world through maps and books, and learning a lot about geography in the first two great shinobi world wars that took place in the Leaf Village, the other villages, and so forth. And Naruto would enjoy his life as a kid. He would be a prodigy among prodigies, and one thing that they would notice about Naruto is, like I said, the strange powers that he's had flare up once in a while, which is of course Haki. which, like I said, they consider a Keiki Genkai. He would train in it, but have no real clear guidance, so there's not really much for Naruto to do by himself. He tries day by day to master his haki slowly, and eventually he ends up realizing that it's kind of linked to his willpower. So Naruto begins strengthening the things that he believes in and getting a more clear vision of what his willpower is. He eventually ends up getting into the academy, and once he is there, he realizes just how boring and easy it is. I mean, he was raised by Hiruzen, so all the things that they could teach him at the Genin Academy is not really going to be proving to be much of a challenge. So Naruto eventually ends up leaving the academy at 9 years old, becoming a captain at 10 years old, and oh, and by the way, an Anbu captain, in case you guys didn't catch that, but an Anbu captain at 10 years old, and going on to lead countless missions, growing his haki and overall chakra control in a sense. He eventually, after a bunch of time happens and completing like 2 more years with the missions after he turns 10, eventually ends up being thrown into Team 7, where he ends up meeting Sakura and Sasuke. Not for the first time, but kind of seeing them after like 3 years, right? Once he gets to that point, what basically ends up happening is I believe Naruto would kind of just arrive there with Sasuke not really liking Naruto just because, you know, he was just thrown into their team for no reason. He didn't earn his spot. But Naruto doesn't really care about Sasuke and opts to simply complete his tasks that he was assigned by Hiruzen. He ends up pretty much just joining and acting nonchalant, like a goofball and chill in nature. And obviously that is his overall general personality, but now that he has joined the Anbu, he has more of a seriousness to him that he could snap into at a given moment. So Naruto is a bit more like on the I have to pick my cards right type of a person, you know what I mean? Eventually though, Naruto would end up meeting Team 7 the day of the bell testing, as that's where they're gonna all eventually see him for the first time in like 3 years. When Naruto arrives, he immediately begins just being a chill person and saying what's up to the team, with Sasuke clearly not enjoying Naruto's presence. Eventually, however, Kakashi would end up arriving, and it's at this point that Naruto would pretty much end up helping the team to pass by kind of pushing Team 7 into teamwork forcibly by making it so that they all had to use teamwork or they were not going to fail. It kind of made it so that they could kind of understand this. And to paraphrase what this Naruto is going to kind of be like in the series, the best way I could explain it is that Naruto has big plans. Big plans to become a Kage someday and end all wars by becoming a powerful person that nobody could step in front of his path. That's what Naruto wants. He wants to cause a world of peace to emerge. That said, like I said, Team 7 passes and Naruto would go on a bunch of D-rank missions, acting like a total goofball for a total of 2 weeks, training in secret and getting stronger by the day, with eventually the day coming where they end up essentially asking Hiruzen for a C-rank mission, thinking that they're ready with a smile on his face. He agrees, and so they embark on said C-rank mission, meeting a group of bandits and then swiftly taking them out, letting Sasuke take all the glory and letting himself be called a scaredy cat just for laughs and giggles. He doesn't really care because the only thing Naruto cares about is protecting his comrades and also just being a chill guy in total. Like, I mean, we saw Shanks having a bottle spilled on him and broken on his head, and the dude just laughed it off. So I don't think Naruto's exactly going to be doing much when it comes to defending myself. So yeah, kind of just lets Sasuke take the glory and goes on with his day. Eventually a thick fog would arrive, and this is when they inevitably encounter Zabuza and Momoishi, when essentially Kakashi would end up getting captured. Once Kakashi gets captured, Naruto decided I was playing like nice this entire time. I didn't step in the way, Kakashi, but you made a fatal mistake. Let your guard down and now you're gonna die if I don't step in the way. So immediately, what does Naruto do? Naruto looks to Sasuke and says, Sasuke, protect the bridge builder. He goes on to grab his sword and then proceeds to essentially slowly run towards the direction of Zabuza as his clones will begin rushing at Naruto, but Naruto simply jumps, dodges, and weaves using observation haki to then also just slash at all of these clones individually, absolutely dismantling them, mind you, while he's basically just destroying everything in his path and eventually ends up arriving right in front of Zabuza, who with nothing but one arm and one leg able to actually do anything against Naruto, gets outclassed with Naruto's water walking abilities, being able to actually catch Zabuza off guard. From here, Naruto proceeds to essentially just continue revealing his power and eventually going on to destroy Zabuza, which would actually be a really cool encounter, because Zabuza, after being pushed away and being showed that Naruto isn't something to be laughed at, Naruto would then begin rushing in at Zabuza's direction with his blade, and with observation, Haki would dodge the pierces, the slashes, from the direction of Zabuza himself. Naruto goes on to continue this battle, and mind you, it's not an easy one to fight. This is not the easiest thing Naruto's ever done, but not the hardest thing at all. Because Naruto, mind you, has 3 years of Anbu experience under his belt, plus Haki, plus the training of Hiruzen. You pretty much don't get any luckier than that when it comes to your birth and like your difficulty level in a video game. The dude is literally playing on recruit difficulty. That said, he goes on to essentially destroy Zabuza, and while this is all happening, Kakashi would simply look to Sasuke, who at this point is just realizing Naruto's like that. Like, he got it like that, you know what I mean? And eventually Haku would end up coming out when she realizes, or he saw her, realizes that Zabuza's probably gonna die if he doesn't step in. Naruto just decides to essentially, once he sees Haku come in, decide to not exactly let Haku get away. So when Haku comes in and begins to pretend that he's some tracking ninja, Naruto simply looks to Haku and says, okay, do your job then. And Haku would immediately have a drop of sweat go down his face as he begins to think how he's gonna get out of there. But Naruto wasn't playing no games, and he says, you're lying. As he then goes on to pretty much reveal his Conqueror's Haki, as it goes on to shock Haku into place, so that Naruto gets one clean fell swoop right at the neck of Haku, essentially decapitating Haku, and then going on to pretty much take care of Zabuza himself, leading to the team having to look away, and Naruto simply twirling his blade in his hands and putting it right back where it belongs, before then saying, we should go. Kakashi, just get on my back. And maybe next time, don't be as cocky when you're fighting against somebody. You out of anybody here should know that. Kakashi kind of holds the back of his head a little bit and jumps onto Naruto's back as they make their way towards Tazuna's home. And when they end up eventually arriving, what ends up pretty much happening is Sasuke would be heavily jealous of Naruto, asking him why he hid his strength and being all butthurt all in all. But after that, we really have nothing to cover, because the only thing that really happens is the confrontation between Gato's men. But if we're being generally realistic here, the Team 7, who's actually fully healed this time around, could more than handle this Gato squad. So after the mission is complete and they have nothing left to do, they eventually end up going home to the bridge being named the Great Naruto Bridge, and they actually end up meeting the Sand siblings, or at least Naruto does, because the way that this all goes down is Naruto ends up arriving in the village. They end up briefing Hiruzen on what went down in the, the Land of the Waves mission, and Hiruzen ends up pretty much telling Naruto if he finally showed his true colors. Naruto just kind of says he had to. I mean, Kakashi let his guard down and almost died, and Kakashi had to look away and whistle as Hiruzen just kind of scoffed at that and said, I can't believe you had to let Naruto save you. Kakashi kind of got a little bit of embarrassment there, but it is what it is, and eventually Naruto heard the screams of a kid that he could recognize, which was Konohamaru, his pretty much little brother since he can remember. Naruto, sensing that Konohamaru was in danger, legit goes on to let out an insane amount of Haki that goes on to split the skies and knocks out hella people. Then rushing at Konohamaru to ask him if he's okay once Gaara, Tamari, and Kankura were all knocked out. Naruto, by the way, doesn't actually go on to take part in any of the exams just because of the fact that the dude's already a Jonin. There's nothing that Naruto has left to prove. He is already become an Anbu captain, and Naruto already has the rank of a Jonin, as I said. So instead, he just watches. Oh, and mind you, Sasuke, he does end up getting the curse mark just because Naruto isn't there. So what basically ends up happening is, Sasuke gets bit in the neck. He gets Orochimaru's Hiki faster. And then, what would happen? Okay, yeah, no. I thought about it. So obviously Naruto isn't there to protect him. So Sasuke pretty much has to grow a pair and end up unlocking his Sharingan in the forest. Orochimaru then gets pretty excited, bites down on his neck, and leaves Sasuke to be knocked out, leaving Sakura to have to pretty much treat and heal him the entire way inside the Chunin exams, until eventually he wakes up and goes on to take out the Sound Genin and break their arms, and you guys know the rest. The rest is history. They end up making their way towards the Chunin exams, and Sasuke and Sakura have the preliminary battles, which go down just like canon. Sakura loses because she ties with Ino, and Sasuke wins because he's fighting against some nobody who just gets pretty much no diffed. That said, what ends up going down following this little situation is the little mini time skip happens, which is essentially the 1 month training arc where Naruto goes on to meet Jiraiya, or not really meet him because of the fact that he already knows of Jiraiya since he met him when he was about 4 years old. So yeah, they hang out, Naruto learns the Rasengan and not how to summon toads because he doesn't really like that idea. He actually ended up learning the monkey summoning that Hiruzen knows because he would have taught it to him and passed it down to him. And Naruto instead later on is going to go on to become a monkey sage. I think it fits Shanks more than a toad sage. I just don't know. I just feel like it would be a lot better. That said, he'd be a little bit like Hiruzen, and eventually the day of the Konoha attack would pretty much end up taking place. Sasuke versus Gaara, I'm not even going to cover that because you guys know how that goes. Sasuke is going to get one-shotted, absolutely mollywopped, and it's not even going to be funny. The dude kind of dies in this version just because I'm going to break it to you this way. Naruto was in the middle of a crazy attack. Naruto wasn't expecting it, Hiruzen wasn't expecting it, and nobody really was expecting it because Sasuke just said that he got a curse mark. Obviously they knew about Orochimaru, but just like in the original, they still weren't able to stop the attack. Gaara runs off and Sasuke goes on to chase after him. No Naruto means no Sasuke alive. And since Naruto doesn't go after Sasuke, you guys are probably wondering, what does Naruto do? Well, Naruto opts to actually defend Hiruzen and tag team to seal the Kage that are fighting against Hiruzen to beat Orochimaru because he doesn't want Hiruzen to die. Naruto already knows that Hiruzen is too old to even be fighting at all, much less against Asani. So Naruto jumps in the way, and with the help of Naruto was able to help Hiruzen see reason and not actually use the Death Reaper seal, leading to him not having to actually die to use the whole jutsu thing, right? So instead, they end up using a different jutsu to seal them just because we know that you don't have to exactly sacrifice your life to do it. I'm just gonna say Hiruzen whips something else out and they are able to successfully seal both Kage. And following this, the little situation where Hiruzen it gets stabbed and Hiruzen grabs onto Orochimaru, that doesn't really end up happening. Just because I believe that a different situation actually ends up taking place. Naruto was not about to let his sensei pretty much sacrifice his life for no reason. So instead, he essentially goes on to unveil that he is not playing no more games. He goes on to unleash his full Conqueror's Haki, and with that goes on to essentially coat his blade in the same thing that Roger and Whitebeard were able to do for a split second, causing Naruto to be able to cut at Orochimaru's chest, pretty much taking him out of commission and forcing Orochimaru's retreat from the village hidden in the leaf. And with this situation playing out the way that it does, when Orochimaru wakes up to find out that Sasuke's dead, he's pretty much traumatized and depressed. He doesn't lose his arm and he just has to switch bodies, but it is a major drawback and also a major, step back and a slap to the face, just because that was pretty much one of Orochimaru's main goals. That said, Naruto goes on to help Hiruzen win, and after this, Naruto's able to just continue training, being sad about the loss of his comrade, but thinking that things happen for a reason, and Hiruzen stays Kage for about 1.5 more years. Also, Sasuke, like I said, he died because Naruto wasn't there. So Itachi in this version is gonna be big mad and releases a ton of info on the Hidden Leaf Village about 1 year after Sasuke's death, because he doesn't find out until no way, he would find out soon. That's not good. Yeah, he ends up releasing info, and then other villagers are pretty much plotting. Hiruzen for a year pretty much ends up trying to convince other nations not to go into war, and Naruto's pretty much going to be off doing his own separate training, starting the time skip a lot earlier than he would in canon, because he doesn't have to go search for Tsunade, and he also doesn't have to do the Sasuke retrieval mission, giving Naruto more time to train. So when 1.5 years into his training, he would end up finding out, big plot twist, Hiruzen died. And who did he die to? He died to Itachi, because he didn't protect Sasuke, and Naruto would get extremely mad. One good thing that would come out of this is that Itachi also kills Danzo, just because, I mean, it's Danzo. Like, yeah. So that's a good thing. And what basically ends up happening following this situation, in my personal eyes, is Naruto would get extremely angry after receiving a letter of the fact that his sensei just died. Keep in mind, Naruto's not off on the training journey with Jiraiya. He's off by himself, learning and finding himself, achieving new and higher levels of haki, training with the monkey sages, and absolutely just pretty much becoming a lot stronger. So yeah, Naruto eventually, after finding out about Hiruzen's death, rushes back to the village only to find it in shambles. And it's at this moment that Naruto pretty much ends up telling Jiraiya that he has to become Kage. And so after Jiraiya becomes Kage and Naruto helps clean up the pieces a bit and pretty much ends up kind of letting other villages know if they want a war, they'll have one, but he'll be there. And other villages kind of realize, you know, like, even though like that village has a lot of, they have a lot of dirt on them, they're still pretty much the strongest village like alive as of this moment. So peace remains for another 1.5 years, and Naruto goes on to the rest of the time getting even more OP with a higher determination, coming back so strong it's not even funny. He immediately gets down to business and would go on to ask Jiraiya how he's been, but he ends up finding out about the Akatsuki taking tailed beasts, and so Naruto decides that they're a huge threat. Plus, he wants to kill Itachi for what he did. So he ends up using the flying Raijin that he would have learned over the time skip to essentially go on to defeat and save, Deidara and Sasori, but also save Gaara. He, much like you guys are probably expecting, goes on to kill Deidara and Sasori, using the flying Raijin to actually catch Sasori off guard, and with the knowledge that Lady Chiho would have given to him, Naruto would know exactly what spot to hit on Sasori's thing. He would have marked Deidara before he had the ability to fly away, and after piercing into Sasori's chest with the Chidori, which he would have learned from Kakashi later on, would have essentially pretty much killed Sasori, and then flying Raijin behind Deidara, landing on top of his bird, and in awesome fashion just proceeded to essentially, using observation haki, dodge a hit from Deidara, as he then went on to uppercut Deidara with armament haki, mind you, and send him flying off into the trees somewhere. He landed, and Naruto jumped down onto a bunch of exploding clay bombs. When the smoke cleared, Naruto was shown to have taken no physical damage other than to his clothes, and Naruto just looked at the direction of Deidara, telling him, "Is that it?" As from here, he went on to essentially blitz the man and just cut his head clean off. And I think, Naruto / Shank's reincarnation could do this just because we know Shanks is pretty much the only man to have ever be known to rival Mihawk. Is it because of his swordsman skills, or is it because of his haki? We really don't know yet. But as of now, we do know one thing, and that's that Shanks don't play no games. So he went on to destroy this man, and that's all there was to it. There's nothing else. Deidara was forced to tell him where to find the rest of the Akatsuki members, and after this he ends up going to the village where Pain is located at, because Jiraiya is now Kage. So this is where more events would actually begin changing. Following this, he ends up pretty much opting to go after Pain and Konan, and he ends up pretty much making his way towards the village, where he ends up killing tons of the people in Konoha. Not Konoha, but killing tons of the people in that village, because Naruto was not playing no games. And also, I think I was capping on that. Yeah, Naruto wouldn't do that, but he would definitely try to get rid of the threat that is Pain and Konan. So he would end up arriving. Then the Rinnegan would end up shocking him at the beginning stages of the battle, but much like Jiraiya would, I think Naruto would end up finding out subtle weaknesses about these paths, and using his OP abilities is able to pretty much break one, catch another one off guard, barely, using the flying Raijin because the speed was able to outclass their vision, their shared vision, destroy one with a Rasengan, punch one out, and now there's only 4 paths left. Naruto, through trial and error, ends up finding out different ways of defeating them using his speed, and also using Kurama for the first time, would tap in to KCM2. Y'all are probably like, yo, what are you doing? What do you mean KCM2? Bro, let's be honest. This Naruto has a bigger drive to train. And if Naruto was able to learn all this stuff in like a week, after his time skip, I mean, the dude learned the Rasen Shuriken in a week. The dude learned Sage Mode in a week, and then went on to learn KCM2 in like 10 seconds after Kurama just agreed to it. Please don't argue with me down below in the comments. Naruto would definitely know how to do all of this stuff. So following this, he goes on to dismantle Pain, find Nagato, talk some sense into him, and actually get him to join the Leaf Village. They end up returning to the Leaf Village alongside Nagato and Konan because he didn't kill them. He didn't feel like he had to. These two didn't feel like as malicious as Deidara and Sasori felt. Deidara is a terrorist, and Sasori is a bloodthirsty killer. The dude had no redeeming qualities at that point. But Konan and Pain, they have things that could actually help the Leaf Village. So he ends up pretty much opting to let them join, and he returns to Konoha to find it in ruin, because other villages ended up essentially attacking it because of Itachi's knowledge that he would have spread to everybody. He would get extremely mad and pretty much walk into the center of the war that's going on, only to say, "Stop! This war ends here," as he lets his Conqueror's Haki spread everywhere, knocking out thousands and thousands of shinobi. Like literally 50,000 shinobi would get knocked out, all the weaker ones. So only the super strong ones would be there left, and Naruto would go on to essentially be like, "I'm not letting this slide. Like, you either stop this war or I stop it for you." And people would kind of stop in their tracks. Naruto's power is clearly being sensed by everybody, and the Raikage would say, "Why should we stop when the Leaf Village never stopped to do their things?" He rushes in at Naruto trying to pretty much show off or whatever, but Naruto speed blitzes the Raikage and holds him by the throat with a kunai, much like his father would have many years ago, then going on to tell the Cloud Village that if they don't retreat, they can say goodbye to their Kage. Killer Bee comes rushing in trying to do something, but Naruto simply would go on to essentially look at him with his Conqueror's Haki at full blast and decide that Raikage is not redeemable. He goes and cuts into Raikage A, then blitzing towards the direction of Killer Bee, who would shoot a tentacle out at him, which would actually send him back flying because he wasn't expecting that, but he would then get back up and know that now Killer Bee has these abilities. He rushes in using Observation Haki, this time much more cautious, ends up dodging everything, and thus destroying Killer Bee. After this small show of his power and destroying a whole Raikage in front of all of them in the span of like 10 seconds, everybody kind of gets the picture. Naruto's not playing no games. We should leave. They end up doing so, and this actually stops the war entirely, leaving Naruto to go on to essentially ask Nagato what they can do about the death of all these people that are here. And Nagato simply says, I did want to meet Jiraiya sensei, but I guess only Konan will get the chance to. And he then goes on to essentially perform a rebirth because Jiraiya had already died in the battle. And he ends up reviving Jiraiya and reviving a ton of Konoha shinobi, which would have inevitably end up losing their own lives in the battle. This would lead to kind of Naruto being thankful for the sacrifice that Pain did, and also be saddened by the fact that they lost such a good shinobi that day. He ends up deciding that this is it, and he then goes on to train even harder, realizing that now he has two big threats to his entire plan. He has the threats of Itachi and Obito, and he decides that he now needs to put an end to both of them. Alongside the help of Konan, he ends up making his way towards the direction where he's going to inevitably end up fighting Itachi and Obito. And Itachi's sickness at this moment would pretty much be at where it was when he fought against Itachi, so he's still going to be a big help in the battle, but seeing as he's sick, not as much. That said, he wouldn't also bump into only Itachi and Obito in the battle, but he would actually end up bumping into Snake Sage Kabuto, who would have ended up pretty much betraying Orochimaru and then going on to, well, like, take the dude's cells and body and learn Snake Sage mode. So now we have Naruto with his Haki pretty much mastered, with Kurama KCM2 mode, with the Flying Raijin, Chidori, Rasengan, and all 5 elements under his belt, as well as one of the greatest styles of taijutsu and one of the greatest swordsman in the entire Narutoverse as of the moment, fighting against Itachi, Obito, and Kabuto Snake Sage mode. when it comes to Kabuto, he doesn't run the risk of having to essentially have to like keep him alive because of the Edo Tensei that he uses in the original. So instead, he's able to pretty much take out the weakest one there. Well, not the weakest, but you guys know what I'm trying to say, right? He blitzes at Kabuto with one fell swoop of his Conqueror blade and just slices off the head of Kabuto, who wasn't even fast enough to register what had went down. He would then catch a kunai in the air, and Obito would think to himself, not again. He phases completely getting out of that situation as Itachi hits him away with the Yadamir. Naruto gets flung back and decides that Itachi is going to be a big problem. He then rushes in, and Itachi would go on to try to pierce him with the Totsuka blade, but Naruto was able to quickly dodge. I mean, it's a big thing, but Naruto was a small target, so it's going to be a lot harder for Itachi to actually end up poking him and just defeating him. So even though many of you guys are probably thinking, oh, but the Totsuka blade could probably beat him because all it has to do is touch him. Well, yeah, but what happens if you can't touch him? So yeah, he jumps up into the air and using his insane speed and all the other things that he has at his disposal would just go on to essentially mollywop Obito and Itachi. I would go into detail, but I think it's too gruesome and pretty much borderline bullying to get into. And once he ends up defeating that of Itachi and Obito and Kabuto, he pretty much ends up realizing the goal that he has been striving for his entire life. He defeats them and goes on to essentially make peace with the rest of the nations, making them submit him, causing a sort of peace where the world actually ends up uniting and everything ends up kind of cooling down. That is, until he dies, because that still happens. You know, old age, yeah, father time, he'll get you if anyone else can. But that marks the ending of What If Naruto was Shank's reincarnation. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to go down below, smash the like button, leave a comment. I'm going to be responding in the first 10 hours of this video. And also, make sure to go check out What If Naruto was Rayleigh's reincarnation, another dope video that I made that's actually a lot longer than this one because it was more of a fanfic style, as this one was more of a what would actually happen, in my opinion. Not as much fanfic as it is more reality to me. Because, you know, it's not ever gonna happen. It's not canon. Even though Oda and, what was the creator of like Naruto? His name always slips my mind. But you guys know what I'm talking about though, right? Yeah, you guys get it. Anyways though, that marks the end of today's video. I'll catch you guys next time, hopefully in video format, because your boy's content is gonna start changing soon. But with all that out of the way, I love each and every single one of you guys. It has been your boy Zether, and I am out. Peace.